Our memory has no guarantees at all, and yet we bow more often than is objectively justified to the compulsion to believe what it says. In the depths of my heart I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. No, our science is no illusion. But an illusion it would be to suppose that what science cannot give us we can get elsewhere. When a love relationship is at its height, there is no room left for any interest in the environment. A pair of lovers are sufficient to themselves. Religious doctrines are all illusions. They do not admit of proof, and no one can be compelled to consider them as true or to believe in them. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. One thing about human beings puzzles me the most is their conscious effort to be connected with the object of their affection, even if it kills them slowly within. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is, what does a woman want? He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Who lacks sex speaks about sex, hungry talks about food, a person who has no money, about money, and our oligarchs and bankers talk about morality. Future ages will produce further great advances in this realm of culture, probably inconceivable now, and will increase man's likeness to a god still more. It is that we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. The ego refuses to be distressed by the provocations of reality, to let itself be compelled to suffer. The pleasure of satisfying a savage instinct, undomesticated by the ego, is incomparably much more intense than the one of satisfying a tamed instinct. In mourning, it is the world which has become poor and empty. In melancholia, it is the ego itself. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other and to a greater or lesser extent. Analysis does not set out to make pathological reactions impossible, but to give the patient's ego freedom to decide one way or another. The poor ego has a still harder time of it. It has to serve 3 harsh masters, and it has to do its best to reconcile the claims and demands of all 3. Dreams tell us many an unpleasant biological truth about ourselves, and only very free minds can thrive on such a diet. The scope of one's personality is defined by the magnitude of that problem which is capable of driving a person out of his wits.